So if you're a Kiss fan or follow the Kiss saga or the Kiss story, or you'll probably get a kick out of this. It's a very short little article that I found, but as you know, if you follow Kiss, there was a time back in the 80s where the band really started coming apart. I mean, Peter Criss left, and they had to bring Eric Carr in, and then Ace Frehley's gone, and then the whole chaos with all of that. I mean, from Vinnie Vincent and the Creatures of the Night, and just on and on, just so many crazy things. And one of the things was Gene Simmons was, for some reason, getting bored with being a rock star, and so as you had these guys that were kind of wanting to go off in their separate directions, other than, it seems, Paul, Gene goes off and he wants to now be an actor in Hollywood, and this probably is spawned on a little bit by his relationship with Cher, which we have and Diana Ross, which we have a whole nother video about. That's pretty interesting, and it wasn't really. It added some challenges to the band, because Paul Stanley's thinking, this is us, this is the mothership, this is what we do, this is our baby, because he and Gene really were the core of Kiss, and then Gene starts kind of getting a little wobbly, and it was really, in some ways, equal billing for the two guys, but it pushed Paul to the point that he did not like the fact that Gene was just disappearing. And then Paul finally, he has the whole workload on himself, and he resented that. And he's been pretty open about that over the years. Well, anyway, that's not the purpose of this video. What I found was a little article where Gene Simmons, he was in a movie you might remember called Trick or Treat. And I think he played a disc jockey. I haven't seen I saw the movie once, like a million years ago. And we have a whole nother video on this channel about that soundtrack, the Fastway soundtrack from that movie. But I found this little article where Gene just talks a little bit about his desire to go be an actor. And this was about the Trick or Treat time. And as you recall, the first time it was Runaway, it was with Tom Selleck. And I remember as a kid, Gene Simmons is going to be in a movie, and it's Tom Selleck, and I was so excited, to go see Gene Simmons on the big screen as a I don't know, what was he, a terrorist, or I don't remember even much about the movie, but Gene Simmons, right? He was in it, and so I was super excited. I remember seeing it, and he was in it, wasn't in it very long, just here and there, as I recall. But anyway, so I'm going to read this to you. I think you'll find this kind of interesting. On the screen, if you're looking at it right now, you'll see Gene Simmons. This is a picture from one of the publicity photos from the movie Trick or Treat. And I think this photo, if you have the Trick or Treat soundtrack, is on the back of the soundtrack album. And then it says Gene Simmons stars in Trick or Treat. And this article is taken from the Santa Cruz Sentinel, November 11th, 1986. And the title of the article is just Simmons Tackles a New Challenge. And it's an AP, it's Associated Press article. And this is it. So Los Angeles, Gene Simmons, the wild man of that outrageously costumed rock group Kiss, has a reason for moving into the acting trade. Quote, once you climb the heights, once you reach the top of the mountain, the question is, what do you do next? Go back to the bottom of the mountain and relax? Not for me, he said. The top of the mountain just affords me a better view of all the other mountains I haven't climbed yet. I'd like to do other work and do it well. Acting sure is one of them. Unquote. Simmons is appearing during the Halloween season in his fourth movie, Trick or Treat, playing a disc jockey who befriends teenager Eddie Weinbauer. Both become involved in a diabolical plot by a dead rock idol, Tony Fields, who returns to terrorize a high school. In Simmons' first film, Runaway, he menaced Tom Selleck. Then he appeared as a hermaphrodite in Never Too Young to Die, which he would just as soon forget. In a January release, Wanted Dead or Alive, he plays an Arab terrorist in combat with Rutger Hauer. That could be the test of Simmons' acting skill, since he is a native of Israel. Quote, it's a challenge to play a terrorist and be convincing, he said, because I sure don't believe in blowing up innocent people, but I've got to put myself in that frame of mind, unquote. A few years ago, Simmons started taking acting lessons during his 3 months off from Kiss, even though he gives a powerful performance on the concert stage. He claims it's not like acting. And that is a funny thing, because if you go back to Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, because that was really their first, film acting role, you would think that with their ability to create these alter egos, because they really were. You talk to Paul Stanley and he talks about, he puts that star makeup on and he's no longer Paul Stanley. He's this character, this star child, that they would be able to tap into that somehow. But then when you see the movie Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, they just can't. It's like they're not, I don't know how to explain it. By the way, I mean, come on. Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, is that what it's called? Anyway, you just have to be happy that movie exists. It was so bad. It was so truly, truly awful. But I think it's wonderful that it exists, that it's a snapshot in time, that is there in all its terribleness. So anyway, let's getting back to this article. I didn't mean to get off on that. But you would think that would be a natural transition for these guys, but it just wasn't. Quote, "It's like being a soldier and being drilled by a sergeant," he said. "Then you go into battle situation and you do it for real. It's not acting. It's just different frame of reference. Your mind shifts into overdrive and your adrenaline starts going. Acting is being able to crawl under the skin of this other imaginary person and be somebody else. I'm still the same person on the stage, but a larger than life-size version," unquote. Gene Simmons has played a variety of roles during his lifetime. He was born in Israel and came to the United States when he was 9 years old. Quote, "I had to learn this language. I finished school. I finished college, New York University, and I wound up in Spanish Harlem teaching 6th grade. I quit that after 6 months when I realized nobody applauded after the day's sessions. I got no encores, no groupies," unquote, he said. Then he goes on here. "I did all sorts of things. I worked for Vogue magazine as the man Friday to the editor, the only guy on the floor. It was rough. Then I decided to take the bull by the horns. What I really wanted to do was get up on stage. All this time I had a group that was doing weekend shows. You get a lot of attention with a guitar around your neck. Girls want to know who you are. That's appealing." And that is the end of the article. And that sounds just like Gene Simmons now, doesn't it? Anyway, I hope you enjoy this stuff. Please follow the channel. If you haven't followed the channel already, please follow it and like the video. And of course, I'd love to get your feedback. If you ever saw any of these movies, and also the whole, what was it like for all of us, watching that change take place, where we were so many of us, and I know so many people that watch this channel, we were Kiss fans when we were kids, and then watching it kind of dissolve in a way, the way it did, because Dynasty was huge. I remember buying Dynasty, and that was like, I was so excited, and even though it was kind of a disco album, I was a kid, and I loved it so much. And then I don't know what happened, but right around that time, they went on that tour, and then I somehow just kind of forgot about them. Unmasked came out, and I didn't care. All of a sudden. Then The Elder, I really didn't care. I don't know that I ever, still to this day, bought that album. But it was a change then. And then, I graduated myself at that point, as soon as Dynasty and that whole thing was over, and all of a sudden I'm an 11-year-old kid, and then you start hearing Led Zeppelin for the first time and paying attention to this stuff, and you start noticing Ozzy. You hear of that, and then Motley Crue shows up, and then all of a sudden all this other stuff, and Kiss is just a distant memory. And what that was like, how many other people went through that same kind of thing as I did, and then to watch it all, and hear that moment, Gene Simmons is going to be in a movie, and even though I wasn't the crazy Kiss kid I was still interested, just as I am today, in kind of the goings on with all the guys involved. Anyway, like I said, please follow the channel and leave your comments on that. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.